Hello and welcome to English Spark Official. I'm Zayden, joined as always by Alara.
Hey everyone! We're so excited about today's topic.
So usually when you go to like a really high-end restaurant and you order the chef's tasting menu, you are basically paying for this illusion of magic.
Yeah, exactly. You sit down at this dimly lit table. The server places this incredibly complex, perfectly balanced dish right in front of you.
Right, and you just experience it. You taste the rich reduction, the precise texture of the protein, the subtle infusion of herbs.
You are meant to be entirely absorbed in the sensory end result.
Exactly. What you are definitely not supposed to think about is the cold, calculated spreadsheet of logistics that made that single bite possible.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you don't think about the exact temperature the water was maintained at or the, supply chain negotiations for those specific microgreens.
Or the time motion studies the kitchen staff underwent to plate it in under 40 seconds. It's crazy.
Right, because the consumer's organic emotional experience basically requires the creator's structural, almost mechanical reality to remain completely hidden.
Yeah, if the chef came to your table and handed you a clipboard detailing the labor costs and the exact sodium-to-fat ratios, the romance of the meal would just vanish.
It totally would.
Yeah.
The magic depends on the invisible architecture.
But if you were to somehow sneak into that kitchen and steal the master recipe book, you wouldn't find poetry.
No, not at all.
You'd expect something romantic like cook with passion or let the ingredients speak. But instead, you'd find a highly technical, rigid, unforgiving manual.
You'd find mandates.
Exactly, mandates. And that stark contrast between a breezy, organic final product and the rigid mathematical blueprint used to construct it is, well, it's our entire focus today. We are taking you behind the curtain of modern educational media.
Yeah, we have this fascinating internal artifact to examine in this deep dive. It's a master structural mandate. Basically, it's the source code for a highly polished production.
Right. It's titled The English Spark Scripting Blueprint for Educational Podcasts.
And our goal here is to reverse engineer how top-tier educational content is actually designed.
Because this blueprint is used to generate these 20 to 25-minute audio scripts for English language learners. And the ultimate goal of this content is to sound like the most casual, off-the-cuff, friendly conversation you could possibly eavesdrop on.
But the document itself uses these absolute rules, deep psychological manipulation, and massive structural requirements to literally force that casual vibe.
It's wild. It is a masterclass in blending rigorous academic pedagogy with the illusion of two friends just, hanging out.
The level of intentionality here really challenges our basic assumptions about the media we consume. I mean, when you listen to a great educational show, the moments that feel the most spontaneous...
Like a sudden laugh or a tangent?
Exactly, or a quick interruption.
Okay.
Those are almost always the most heavily workshop elements of the script.
Right.
This blueprint proves that authenticity, especially in the context of digital learning, is something that is manufactured on an assembly line.
So we're going to examine how they manage your cognitive load, how they manipulate attention states, and how they engineer that feeling of human connection.
And the craziest part is, the blueprint doesn't even let the writer decide who is doing the talking.
Oh, yeah. It completely dictates the chefs who are delivering this meal. It commands the creation of two highly specific avatars.
Right. The hosts must always be a male named Zayden and a female named Alara.
And it dictates their age tone, too. They have to sound like they are 20 to 30 years old. They must sound modern and approachable.
And then, my favorite part, there is this very aggressive rule printed in capital letters in the document.
Oh, read it. Read it.
It says the style must be natural, human-like conversation, not robotic, not textbook.
Wow. So to achieve a feeling of breezy, spontaneous authenticity, the creators are relying on absolute dictatorial control.
Basically, yeah. They are locking in the demographic, the names, the exact tone, and then commanding the output to emulate human flaw.
It's so akin to watching a gritty indie film. You watch two actors stumbling over their words, laughing awkwardly at a bad joke, talking over each other in a heated moment, and you assume the director just rolled the cameras and let them riff.
Right, but if you look at the script supervisor's notes, you realize every single stutter, every half breath, every overlapping syllable was meticulously typed out on page 4.
The chaos was entirely planned.
The blueprint specifically requires the writer to script that chaos. Under its conversation rules, it lists use interruptions, reactions, agreements, add light humor where appropriate, avoid long monologues.
So they are quite literally scheduling the interruptions. Zayden and Alara aren't allowed to just speak. They are mandated to collide with each other verbally.
Yeah, someone is sitting at a keyboard typing, okay, at minute 4, Zayden, I need you to cut Alara off mid-sentence.
Which is fascinating. But we have to look at the motivation behind this. Why build Zayden and Alara? Why force them into this 20 to 30-year-old demographic? And why mandate these scheduled interruptions?
Well, traditional adult education, particularly language learning, suffers from a severe branding crisis.
Oh, for sure.
The traditional textbook, or the classic lecture format, is sterile. It carries all this psychological baggage of past academic failures, the pressure of standardized testing, the embarrassment of being called on in a quiet room.
Ugh, just thinking about that makes me sweat.
Right. In linguistics, there is a concept developed by Stephen Krashen called the affective filter.
Okay, what's that?
It is essentially a psychological barrier that prevents language acquisition. When a learner is anxious, stressed, or self-conscious, their affective filter goes up.
So the brain just goes into a defensive posture.
Exactly. Your amygdala detects a threat, which in this case is social embarrassment, and it literally redirects cognitive resources away from the prefrontal cortex, where higher-order processing and language acquisition happen.
Wow. So the input might be hitting your eardrums, but your brain refuses to encode it. You are functionally deaf to the lesson.
Yep. The traditional authoritative teacher-student dynamic is actively working against the biology of learning.
So to bypass the affective filter, you have to entirely recontextualize the environment.
You have to make the listener feel like they are not in a classroom. You place them in a virtual coffee shop.
You let them eavesdrop on Zayden and Alara, these two modern 20-somethings who aren't lecturing but just happen to be chatting about English.
Right, and the scripted interruptions, the overlapping dialogue, the yas, and
the filler words.
Yeah, that is the auditory signature of human safety. We overlap when we are comfortable with someone.
That makes so much sense. By forcing the writer to mimic this cadence, the audio acts as a physiological signal to your nervous system. It lowers your cortisol.
Exactly. It builds a parasocial relationship where you, the listener, feel safe.
But I do wonder, does scripting and interruption risk falling into the uncanny valley of conversation?
What do you mean?
Like, we've all endured those awful corporate HR training modules where two actors pretend to have a casual chat about data compliance.
Oh, no.
Well, Bob, I certainly hope no one writes their password on a sticky note today. Me too, Susan. That would be a security violation.
Right, it's agonizing.
It really is. So how does this blueprint avoid that cheesy artificial trap if the interruptions are mandated?
Well, the blueprint explicitly warns against sounding robotic or repetitive, which means the writer has to deploy these interruptions strategically, not just as clunky transitions.
Okay.
A bad corporate script uses an interruption to clumsily pass the microphone to the next bullet point. A masterfully written script uses an interruption to mirror the listener's internal monologue.
Oh, that's clever. Give me an example.
Okay, imagine Alara is explaining a highly complex grammar rule. A good writer will have Zayden interrupt her at the exact millisecond you at home are starting to feel overwhelmed.
So Zayden will cut in and say something like, wait, hold on, Alara. Are you saying that the verb just changes completely?
Yes, Zayden is the proxy for the audience. He is the designated student who gets to voice the confusion so you don't feel inadequate.
He validates your confusion in real time. You're sitting there thinking, oh, good, Zayden didn't get it either.
And your affective filter stays down. And the choice of the 20 to 30 age demographic plays perfectly into this dynamic.
Oh, so?
They are old enough to possess authority and relate to working adult learners, but young enough to be perceived as peers. They are not dusty professors standing behind a podium. They're like your slightly sharper friends, helping you figure things out.
Think about your own media consumption patterns. Your favorite talk shows, the interview deep dives you never miss, the YouTube channels you binge. How much of the banter, the seemingly accidental tangent, the moment one host surprises the other with a fact, is actually a carefully engineered structural requirement?
It's probably most of it.
Yeah.
We crave authentic human connection so deeply that we have forced content creators to industrialize it.
We want the warmth of a spontaneous conversation, delivered with the rigorous pacing of a television broadcast.
And biologically, our auditory processing centers respond entirely differently to dialogue than they do to a monologue.
Really?
A single voice reading a script triggers the lecture schema in the adult brain.
Yeah.
The brain categorizes the incoming data as a one-way transmission. The body relaxes, attention drifts, and we become passive.
But a dialogue triggers the social interaction schema.
Exactly. Even if we are just listening, our brains unconsciously track the power dynamics, the turn-taking, the emotional tone, the subtle microaggressions or moments of support.
So our social circuitry stays alert, which means our attention remains locked on the audio.
Spot on.
Okay, so they've built these avatars that make us feel safe. We're hanging out with Zayden and Alara, our stress is down and our social circuitry is engaged.
Right.
But making someone feel relaxed doesn't automatically mean they're learning a language. Zayden and Alara aren't just chatting about their weekend, they are covertly delivering a highly structured English curriculum.
Yeah, they are.
How do they inject complex grammar and vocabulary into this casual coffee shop vibe without shattering the illusion?
This is honestly the most linguistically demanding part of the entire operation. The blueprint targets learners at the A2 to B2 level on the common European framework of reference for languages, specifically those living in English-speaking environments.
Let's contextualize that gap, because A2 to B2 is an enormous canyon of proficiency.
It really is.
Like A2 is an upper beginner. If you are A2, you can navigate a grocery store, you can order a coffee, and you can tell someone what you did on Saturday using simple past tense.
Right.
But if a native speaker uses slang or speaks quickly, you are instantly lost.
And B2, on the other hand, is upper intermediate. A B2 speaker can work comfortably in an English-speaking office. They can argue a point, understand the main ideas of complex texts, and interact with native speakers with a degree of fluency that doesn't cause strain for either party.
So writing a single 25-minute script that an A2 beginner can follow without getting lost, but that a B2 near-fluent speaker won't find patronizing or boring, sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Oh, it is. The writers are given a strict directive on language control. It says, start with simple vocabulary and gradually increase difficulty.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the mandate that fundamentally alters how the script is written is this. Any difficult word must be explained naturally in conversation.
Wow.
The blueprint absolutely forbids complex academic jargon without an immediate contextual explanation. It bans grammar beyond the B2 level entirely.
So they're forbidding the overt mechanics of a classroom.
Yeah.
If a teacher introduces the word procrastinate, they write it on a whiteboard, they provide the dictionary definition.
Like to delay or postpone action.
Right, and they give an example sentence.
Right.
But if Zayden suddenly says, Alara, the definition of procrastinate is to delay action, the indie movie illusion dies instantly.
It's completely dead. The writer has to perform a kind of linguistic sleight of hand. They have to weave the dictionary definition directly into the social dynamic of the hosts.
Give me an example of how that looks in the script.
Okay, to teach procrastinate, Alara might complain, I have that huge quarterly report due tomorrow morning, but instead of typing it, I just spent 3 hours reorganizing my spice rack.
Ha!
And Zayden laughs and says, oh, so you're procrastinating again. You're just putting off the work until the last possible minute.
Putting off the work until the last possible minute is the exact definition, but Zayden delivered it as a playful tease.
Exactly. The B2 listener, who already knows the word, just hears witty banter between friends. They are entertained by the dynamic.
But the A2 listener, who has no idea what procrastinate means, hears the context.
Avoiding the report to clean the kitchen.
Right, and then hears Zayden explicitly define the behavior. The scabbling is entirely invisible.
It's brilliant.
This perfectly mirrors the difficulty curve in a brilliantly designed video game. Think about the first level of any great game. It never gives you a wall of text explaining the physics engine or the controller mapping.
Right, it drops you into a safe room where the only way out is to jump over a small obstacle.
And the next room introduces a slightly taller obstacle. By the time you reach the final boss of the game, you are executing flawless, complex combinations of moves, and you have no idea how many mechanics you've internalized because you are entirely focused on the narrative of the game.
The script functions exactly like that escalating level design. Remember the rule. Start with simple vocabulary, gradually increase difficulty.
Right.
By minute 7 of the deep dive, the A2 listener has been subtly fed 5 or 6 new vocabulary definitions through context. Their working vocabulary has been artificially boosted within the isolated bubble of this specific episode.
Wow, so because of that invisible scaffolding, when the script introduces a much more complex B2 concept at minute 18, the A2 listener actually possesses the temporary linguistic tools required to understand it.
Exactly. But honestly, the writer must be exhausted.
Seriously, they have to constantly evaluate the script on 2 entirely different tracks.
Yeah, track 1 is the narrative. Is this banter funny? Does Zayden sound like Zayden? Is the pacing natural?
And track 2 is the pedagogical math. Is this sentence structure strictly A2? Did I use a B1 phrasal verb here without defining it?
Right. Like if Alara says cut to the chase, do I need Zayden to immediately say, yeah, let's get straight to the point?
They are mapping rigid CEFR guidelines onto casual modern slang for 25 solid minutes.
It requires a profound understanding of lexical density and syntactic complexity. And remember, the audience is located in English-speaking environments. These are learners who live in London or New York or Sydney. They hear native speakers all day long.
Which raises an interesting question. If they live in New York and are surrounded by native English, why do they need to listen to simulated native speakers like Zayden and Alara?
Because native environments do not offer a gradual difficulty curve.
Oh, that's true.
Stepping into a real-world native environment as an A2 learner is like being dropped into the final boss fight at level 1. Native speakers slur their words together. They use highly regional idioms.
And complex conditional grammar without even thinking about it.
Right. And crucially, they do not provide contextual clues for the vocabulary they use. The cognitive load on the learner's working memory is so massive that the system basically crashes. It just becomes a wall of noise.
So Zayden and Alara are basically a linguistic decompression chamber.
That's a great way to put it.
They sound exactly like the native speakers you encounter at the coffee shop or the office, but their speech is sanitized of confusing, unnecessary jargon, deliberately paced, and secretly padded with definitions.
The learner listens to this fast-paced modern conversation and thinks, wow, I understood everything they said. It builds immense confidence.
They don't realize the conversation was mathematically engineered to guarantee their comprehension. The environment was optimized for their success.
But here's the catch. You can feed an A2 learner all the perfectly contextualized vocabulary in the world, but if they are passively listening while doing the dishes, their mind is going to wander.
Oh, absolutely. Even with the best shows, you zone out, you start thinking about your commute or an email you forgot to send. So how does the blueprint ensure you actually absorb this carefully crafted material?
The creators are acutely aware that passive listening is the enemy of retention. So the blueprint deploys a series of mandatory features to force your brain out of its passive state.
Yeah, the document lists mandatory interactive hooks under its listening and learning features. It dictates the natural inclusion of repetition, shadowing practice, where the host says, repeat after me. Listening focus cues like listen carefully, small interactive questions, and written in short pauses.
This completely redefines the medium. It transforms a passive audio file into an active cognitive environment.
Let's look at the neuroscience behind the listening focus cue. The blueprint tells the writer to have a host explicitly say, listen carefully, right before delivering a vital piece of information.
Right. And in cognitive psychology, we look at the brain's alerting network. When you are passively listening to audio, your brain is conserving energy. It's filtering out a vast amount of data.
You're just coasting on autopilot.
Precisely. But when a voice suddenly breaks the narrative flow, addresses you directly, and commands listen carefully, it triggers a micro spike in arousal within your reticular activating system.
Wow.
It physically alters your attention state. The brain flags the incoming data packet as high priority.
So by placing that cue immediately before a complex grammar rule, the blueprint ensures the information lands in a highly receptive, chemically primed brain rather than bouncing off a distracted one.
Exactly. And the blueprint takes it much further with shadowing practice. It forces the writer to use prompts like, repeat after me.
Yeah, when I first read this, my mind went straight to old children's television programming.
Oh, like Dora the Explorer.
Yes. It feels incredibly similar to an animated character staring dead-eyed into the camera, asking, can you say backpack? And then waiting through 5 seconds of agonizing silence while the kid yells at the screen.
The mechanism is identical, honestly. It is just dressed in adult clothing. In linguistics, it's called forced production.
Wait, but if I'm at a coffee shop and my friend suddenly turns to me and tells me to repeat after me, I'm going to think they've lost their mind.
Yeah, you would.
How does this not instantly ruin the Zayden and Alara illusion? How do they pull off an overt classroom drill without shattering the parasocial relationship?
And this is where the writer really earns their keep. If handled poorly, it breaks the fourth wall way too aggressively and triggers that school-related affective filter we talked about.
Right.
The blueprint demands it be done naturally. So the writer leverages the interpersonal dynamic. Instead of Alara acting like a teacher issuing a command, the moment is framed as a shared struggle.
Okay, how so?
So Zayden might stumble over a difficult pronunciation. Alara playfully corrects him. Zayden tries again, struggles, and then turns to the listener and says, "Man, my tongue is getting tied. Hey, try with me. Let's see who can say it faster. Ready? Cut to the chase. Say it."
Then the script mandates the pause.
Right, the silence is built in. And then Zayden follows up with, "Did you get it? Because I definitely messed up the first half."
That is so clever. The listener isn't a subordinate student being drilled by an authority figure. They are a buddy commiserating with Zayden about how absurd the English language can be. The power dynamic is completely flattened.
And the pedagogical value of that specific moment is immense. Comprehending a language and speaking a language utilize entirely different neural pathways.
Really?
Yeah, you can listen to English for thousands of hours and build robust comprehension networks in Wernicke's area. But until you physically speak, your motor cortex isn't engaged.
What?
Shadowing forces the brain to switch from receiving mode to producing mode. It forces the physical articulatory muscles in your mouth to practice forming unfamiliar phonemes, which myelinates the neural pathways required for actual speech.
And the interactive questions function the same way. Like when we, in our own deep dives, ask a rhetorical question. Like when we asked you to think about the scripted nature of your favorite YouTube channels, we do that deliberately. We don't expect you to shout the answer at your dashboard while you drive. We want you to mentally generate a response. The generation effect in cognitive science proves that the act of retrieving or generating a thought makes you significantly more likely to remember the information that follows.
Exactly. Information you construct yourself is anchored much deeper than information you simply receive. The blueprint orchestrates a constant rotation of these micro-engagements.
Right. Listen carefully spikes the attention. Repeat after me forces physical production. What you say in this situation forces mental generation.
The listener is kept on a constantly shifting terrain. You cannot settle into a passive lull because the audio keeps demanding different types of cognitive participation.
And the pauses. We have to talk about the pauses. The blueprint is absolutely obsessed with short pauses, but specifies they must be written naturally, not just inserted as time-stamped blank space.
Silence is a severely underutilized tool in audio design. It allows for cognitive processing, or what we call hippocampal replay.
Oh, what's that?
If a script delivers a dense, abstract B2 concept and instantly pivots to a joke about a coffee cup, the brain drops the complex concept to process the joke. The encoding fails.
That makes a lot of sense.
So by mandating natural pauses like Alara taking a sip of water or Zayden taking a long breath while considering a point, the blueprint creates the necessary temporal space for the brain to consolidate the information.
So every sigh, every subtle pause, every sudden direct address is a targeted pedagogical strike.
It is.
But throwing all of these tricks, the invisible vocabulary scaffolding, the shadowing drills, the attention spikes into a blender would just create chaotic noise. It wouldn't feel like a coherent 25-minute show.
No, it wouldn't. You need a rigid architectural framework to hold all of those elements in their proper place. The pacing must be absolute.
Which brings us to the sheer weight of this document. To hit that precise 20 to 25-minute runtime, the blueprint forces the writer into an incredibly academic 11-step structural formula. It dictates exactly how the narrative must flow.
And the sequence is unyielding.
Walk us through it.
Okay. Step 1, the hook. A sudden attention grabber. Step 2, the greeting, establishing the brand and tying it to the topic. Step 3, topic intro. Step 4, core explanation. Step 5, deep dive explanation. Step 6, examples, specifically grounded in daily life scenarios. Step 7, practice section, utilizing the listening and speaking drills we just talked about. Step 8, recap. Step 9, practice assignment. Step 10, motivational closing. And step 11, call to action.
Fitting an 11-step academic sequence into a casual chat is wild. And the golden rule, printed directly below this list, is do not label sections explicitly. Everything must feel like a natural conversation.
This is the pinnacle of modern instructional design.
Yeah.
It's often called the blended approach.
Give me an analogy.
Think of a stunning modern piece of architecture. A house with massive floor-to-ceiling windows and an airy open floor plan. It looks effortless, light, and natural.
Right, very sleek.
But hidden inside the walls, behind the flawless drywall, are massive, heavy steel I-beams. If those beams were exposed, it would look like an industrial warehouse. The 11-step structure is the steel framework. The casual conversational banter is the drywall.
I love that. So if Zayden were to say, welcome to step 4, the core explanation, he is ripping the drywall off and exposing the steel. The listener instantly realizes they aren't in a coffee shop, they are on an assembly line.
Exactly. The sequence of these 11 steps is a perfect cognitive funnel. Let's examine the psychological journey it forces the listener through. It begins with the hook, because in digital media, attention is your most scarce resource. You have roughly 5 to 8 seconds to convince the brain that this audio is worth the metabolic energy required to process it.
And once secured, the greeting and intro ground the listener in brand trust.
Then it escalates. Core explanation to deep dive to examples. It moves perfectly from abstract theory to concrete reality.
Like, here is the overarching grammar rule. Here is the nuanced B2 level exception to that rule. And now, here is exactly how you use this rule when you were arguing with a customer service rep about a refund.
Grounding the abstract in the visceral. But the critical pivot happens after the examples. We hit step 7, practice. The funnel shifts the burden of cognitive labor from the hosts to the listener.
This is where the shadowing and forced generation occur.
Yep. Then step 8, recap, which utilizes spaced repetition to reactivate the neural pathways that were formed during the core explanation 10 minutes prior.
Step 9 is the practice assignment, bridging the gap between the audio environment and the listener's physical reality, asking them to carry the lesson into their day. Then the motivational closing.
Every single step serves a distinct neurobiological purpose. But why the absolute ban on labeling? Why is exposing the steel beams so dangerous to the learning process?
Yeah, let's dig into that. If the structure is this brilliant, why hide it? Why is it forbidden to say, let's move on to our practice assignment?
It comes back to schema activation, drawing on Piaget's theories of cognitive development.
Okay, unpack that.
As adults, we navigate the world using deeply ingrained mental frameworks or schemas. We have a schema for attending a party, a schema for going to the bank, and a schema for taking a test in school.
Oh, I see where this is going.
For a massive portion of the adult population, the school schema is heavily burdened with negative affect. It is associated with boredom, anxiety, the pressure of evaluation, and the fear of public failure.
The lingering trauma of high school algebra or being forced to speak French in front of 30 judgmental teenagers.
Exactly. When you explicitly use pedagogical labels like practice section, assignment, or recap, you instantly trigger that school schema.
And the listener's brain categorizes the experience as academic work. Their posture changes, their defenses go up, their affective filter closes, and their intrinsic motivation just plummets.
If you tell a kid, here's a bowl of pureed vegetables to make you healthy, they will reject it, even if you blended it with strawberries and it tastes delicious. The label itself ruins the perception.
But if you transition without labels, if Zayden says, that reminds me of a trick I use, instead of, here is the practice assignment, the listener happily engages.
The ban on labeling is a mandate to keep the academic anxiety dormant. The writer must navigate this rigid 11-step steel framework using only the linguistic hinges of casual conversation. Speaking of which, before we go, I want you to try. That's exactly why.
The sheer craftsmanship required to execute this is staggering. A writer has to output 25 minutes of A2-leveled vocabulary, mathematically increasing in difficulty, infused with invisible dictionary definitions, peppered with attention spikes and shadowing drills.
All draped over an unyielding 11-step academic framework.
And make it sound exactly like two attractive 25-year-olds shooting the breeze. It completely shatters the illusion of effortless audio content creation.
It really is a highly sophisticated behavioral modification engine disguised as a casual encounter. And to truly grasp how all these gears lock together, we have to look at the specific application of this blueprint.
Right. The source document actually contains an input section showing exactly what topic this blueprint was primed to generate.
Yeah, let's look at the case study.
The input section provides the specific video title the blueprint is targeting for the English Spark official channel. And the title is _technique. Finding what learners actually type.
So the writer's job is to take all the constraints, the Zayden and Alara personas, the A2 to B2 invisible scaffolding, the 11-step funnel, and apply them to this highly specific subject matter.
The blueprint itself is basically just the empty container. It doesn't actually explain the _technique in the prompt, but forensic analysis of that title reveals an incredible amount about their overarching pedagogical philosophy.
It does. The title points directly to search engine mechanics.
Right. So in major search engines like Google or YouTube, if you type a word, hit the space bar, type an underscore, and hit space again, the autocomplete algorithm will fill in that blank with the most statistically common search phrases.
So if a learner types how to pronounce in English, the algorithm instantly reveals the exact words millions of real human beings are currently struggling to articulate.
It is a classic search engine optimization tactic, usually used by marketers to find long-tail search queries. But look at the framing, finding what learners actually type.
Yeah, that implies they're not just using this technique behind closed doors to generate content ideas. They are actively teaching their learners how to use this data mining tool themselves.
They are handing the learners the sonar equipment. They are saying, don't rely on a dusty textbook to tell you what idioms are relevant right now. Use this underscore trick to tap into the raw, unfiltered data of native and learner language usage.
It is an aggressively modern, data-driven approach to language acquisition.
Now, how does the blueprint demand this is taught? Because looking at the notes, it requires Zayden and Alara to break this down to A2 simplicity.
Right, they can't just talk about long-tail search queries and autocomplete algorithms. That breaks the B2 ceiling instantly.
So how do they simplify the language for A2 learners?
Zayden might say something like, okay, so you go to a search bar, you type your word, make a space, draw a little line on the bottom, and then the internet just shows you exactly what normal people are typing right now.
Draw a little line on the bottom instead of input and underscore. That is perfect A2 scaffolding.
And the blueprint specifically dictates that the examples, section step 6, must include 3 daily life scenarios using this method.
Oh, I see that. Okay, what would those scenarios look like naturally integrated into the banter?
Well, scenario 1 would be professional, like writing an email at work. Alara could say, sometimes I don't know how to end an email. So I type, best regards, make a space, draw that line, and see if people actually use it.
And Zayden says, oh, wow, and does it show you other options?
Yeah, it shows best regards, comma, or best regards to your family. It tells you what's normal.
That's a great A2 example. What's the second daily life scenario?
Probably ordering food. And that's a huge pain point for learners. Zayden might say, I use it when I'm hungry. I type, can I get I? And then the line.
And it shows you, can I get a coffee? Can I get a menu? Can I get a glass of water?
Exactly. It gives the learner immediate practical phrases. And the third scenario could just be small talk.
Right, navigating casual social interactions.
Alara says, or if you want to talk to your neighbor, you type, how was your band? And the line. And you see, how was your weekend? How was your day? How was your trip?
It's so brilliant because they're teaching a complex data mining tool, but framing it entirely around just figuring out what to say at the cafe or the office.
And the blueprint doesn't stop there. For step 9, the practice assignment, it mandates the creation of a step-by-step study plan.
Wait, how do they do a step-by-step plan without making it sound like a syllabus?
Again, casual phrasing. Zayden says, so here's what I want you to try today. Step 1, pick a topic you always mess up.
Step 2, go to your phone, type it in the search bar with that little line.
And step 3, just write down the top 3 results. That's your study list for the week.
It's an assignment, but it feels like a life hack from a friend.
The blueprint also includes instructions for Alara to give tips on tracking common student errors.
Oh, error tracking is huge in language acquisition. How does she frame that casually?
She'd probably say something like, but here's the real trick. Write down what you thought the internet was going to say and compare it to what the line actually shows you.
Ah, that way you can see your own mistakes.
Exactly. It turns the search engine into a personalized tutor.
And to cap it all off, we have to look at how they mandate a short shadowing section right here in the script for these key phrases.
Oh yeah, step 7, the practice section.
So Alara is going to use that forced production we talked about. She's going to say, okay, let's practice the small talk one. Repeat after me.
How was your weekend?
How was your weekend?
And then the mandated pause.
It's incredible. It represents a massive paradigm shift in educational design. Traditional language education is strictly top-down. A publisher sits in a boardroom and dictates the 100 vocabulary words a B1 learner should theoretically know.
But this underscore technique represents a bottom-up philosophy. It relies on the massive aggregated data of human behavior to dictate the curriculum.
Think about the meta layers of what we are examining right now. We are dissecting a rigid algorithmic blueprint dictating how to write a script. That script is designed to teach an audience a technique for interrogating search engine algorithms to find out what other learners are actually typing.
It's turtles all the way down. The creators behind English Spark aren't guessing what their audience needs. They are mathematically scraping the collective unconscious of the internet to find the exact pain points of their demographic.
They possess a profound respect for the reality of the learner's struggle. They bypass what an academic board thinks is useful and go straight to what a human being, typing frantically at a keyboard at 2 a.m., is actually failing to understand.
And once they identify that precise pain point, they feed it into the Zayden and Alara machine to make the solution perfectly digestible.
This reveals something profound about the modern digital landscape. Top-tier educational creators are obsessed with your digital footprint.
Oh, completely.
You aren't just sitting passively in the audience waiting for a lecture. Every time you type a panicked question into a search bar, every time you generate an autocomplete suggestion, you are literally writing the curriculum of the future.
The creators are watching the data streams, analyzing the gaps in knowledge, and then deploying these highly engineered, psychologically optimized avatars to serve you exactly what you secretly needed.
By interacting with the internet, you are the unwitting co-author of the content you consume. English Spark is just pulling back the curtain and teaching their audience how to read the matrix of their own learning environment.
It is empowering and, perhaps slightly dystopian to realize how thoroughly our behavior shapes the media that is designed to shape us.
Yeah, we've spent this entire deep dive staring at the spreadsheet behind the magic trick.
We have analyzed every ingredient in the chef's recipe.
We started by uncovering how total authenticity is actually manufactured. The blueprint mandates fake relatable hosts and strictly scripts their overlapping banter and interruptions to bypass the brain's affective filter.
Lowering your anxiety so you can actually learn.
Right. Then we examined the invisible scaffolding required to navigate the A2 to B2 language gap, forcing writers to embed textbook definitions into casual jokes.
So your confidence is artificially boosted without ever triggering the feeling of being lectured.
We looked at the mandatory interactive hooks, the attention spikes of listen carefully, the neurological requirement of forced shadowing, the strategic use of silence.
All designed to jolt the brain out of passive consumption and into active encoding.
And we saw how this massive cognitive load is supported by an unyielding 11-step architectural framework that funnels you from abstract theory to deep practice,
while strictly forbidding any pedagogical labels that might trigger academic trauma.
Finally, the underscore technique case study revealed that this massive engineering effort is aimed at teaching learners how to harness search algorithms to find real-world data, creating a perfectly optimized, data-driven feedback loop.
It is brilliant, it is deeply effective, and it is entirely artificial.
Which brings me to a thought that has been lingering in the background of this entire analysis.
What's that?
We just spent an hour admiring the sheer human ingenuity required for a scriptwriter to juggle these impossible constraints. To be witty, pedagogically flawless, perfectly leveled, and structurally rigid for 25 minutes straight is incredibly difficult for a human brain.
It's borderline impossible to do consistently.
But look closely at the formatting of the document we've been studying. It has sections labeled Input, Objective, Podcast Style Requirements, Language Level Control.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
This document isn't formatted like a style guide for a human writer in a writer's room. It is formatted exactly like an advanced system prompt for a large language model.
You're right. The constraints, the step-by-step logic, the rigid parameters, it is the perfect architecture for an AI to execute.
If educational content is becoming this meticulously engineered to mimic human connection, if we've quantified exactly how many fake interruptions and relatable laughs it takes to hack our attention and lower our affective filter, what happens when this kind of scripting blueprint isn't written or performed by humans at all?
Wow.
If an AI can instantly generate a script based on this exact blueprint, and an AI voice cloning platform can render perfectly nuanced, overlapping breathing audio for Zayden and Alara, will you even be able to tell the difference?
That is the ultimate question.
When you tune in to learn something new, feeling that warm sense of connection with your favorite hosts, will you know if you're listening to real humans sharing their knowledge, or just a perfectly optimized data-driven algorithm wearing the digital skin of two cool 20-somethings designed specifically to keep your social circuitry engaged?
And honestly, if the psychological comfort is real and the learning outcome is identical, does the origin of the voice even matter?
Something to ponder the next time you hear a host take a very natural, unscripted breath. Until next time, thanks for taking the deep dive.